We are now 1 month into the NFL season. These first 4 weeks gave us a good glimpse of every NFL team and where they are in the standings, and where we can expect each team to end up. But week 4 definitely had its drama, and I want to take a look back at it. I will briefly look at every game played this weekend, and then get into the top 5 storylines going into week 5. So starting on Thursday, we have the Seahawks vs Cardinals. This game had quite the finish. For the first 3 quarters, Seattle looked like they were going to run away with this thing. But then in the 4th quarter, the Cardinals decided to finally wake up. And after missing a field goal that could have put the game away, the Cardinals went down the field to tie the game with less than 30 seconds left. But then a botched kickoff allowed the Seahawks to get within range quickly to win the game. The NFC West race is going to be interesting this year. Our first Ireland game with the Vikings vs Steelers. It was an interesting one. DK Metcalf had a big day. Steelers defense has finally showed up. Weekly blocked field goal for some reason. And then when it came time to close out the game, both teams were trying to give it away. That had to be the worst final sequence I have ever watched. And the Steelers are somehow 3-1. Commanders vs Falcons. This was the bounce back game the Falcons needed after last week. They caught the Commanders at the right time with their top offensive players out. And everyone on the Falcons offense had a big game. Maybe proves last week was a fluke for the Falcons? Saints vs Bills. A pretty close game for two teams that are on opposite sides of the spectrum. The Saints played how I expected them to play. Close, but ultimately lose because of a lack of talent. But they could have made this a lot closer if they didn't get cute on the goal line. Bills ultimately take care of business, but had to make their fans sweat in the process. Browns vs Lions. Well, the Lions took care of business pretty easily. Unlike the Packers, they blew out the Browns and never really gave them a chance to be in the game. It wasn't exactly the cleanest game, but when they took the lead, they never gave it back. For the Browns, Joe Flacco isn't doing it anymore. He's turned the ball over multiple times in each game this season. It might be time to either give Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders a look. Titans vs Texans. Well, one of these teams had to get a win. For a while there, it didn't look like either team wanted to win with all those missed field goals. And then the Texans remembered they were supposed to be good and finally started scoring in the 4th quarter. At least Woody Marks had a breakout game. Panthers vs Patriots. Well, the Panthers crashed down to earth after having 2 decent games. The Patriots boat raced them with a little help from the special teams. About time the Patriots put together a decent game. Finally looked good at all 3 phases. If they can keep it up, they could be in contention for a playoff spot. But we will see if this was merely a mirage or the real deal. Chargers vs Giants. Well, this is what makes football fun. Jackson Dart made his first career start in the NFL against the Chargers team that has looked like one of the best teams in the NFL. And it was a very tough game. It wasn't the greatest game through the air, especially after Malik Neighbors went down, but they pivoted and pounded the rock. And thanks to a less than stellar performance from Herbert, the Giants were able to pull out the biggest upset this weekend. The Dart era in New York has begun. Eagles vs Buccaneers. This was a very weird game. The Eagles controlled the first half easily, even managing a blocked punt. They stuffed the Bucs offense and got out to a huge lead by the 3rd quarter. But Baker Mayfield and the Bucs offense started creeping back into the game. And thanks to Jalen Hurts not completing a single pass in the 2nd half, the Bucs were able to make it close. But the Eagles managed to get a crucial takeaway to stop the Bucs' momentum and squeak by with a win. Jaguars vs 49ers. Another really weird game. The Jaguars actually looked good in the first half. They were able to move the ball at will and force some turnovers. But then the offense just fell apart in the 2nd half. The 49ers were able to claw their way back into the game, but losing basically all their receivers proved to be a problem. After the Jaguars missed a field goal that could have put the game away, the 49ers had a chance to win the game. And then the Jags defense made a big play to win the game. Congrats to Liam Cohen for passing Urban Meyer in career wins. Colts vs Rams. Well, now I'm ready to say the Colts are legit. The Rams are a tough team, and they play them down to the wire. Their whole punting stat is no longer all that shiny, and Daniel Jones finally turned the ball over, but they definitely made the plays to potentially win this game. If it wasn't for Donnie Mitchell taking 2 touchdowns off the board, this game could have gone differently for the Colts. The Rams, on the other hand, made the clutch plays when they were needed. They are legit contenders. Also, Puka Nacua is on one crazy streak. Ravens vs. Chiefs. The Chiefs won a statement game, which is weird to say about the Chiefs, but you aren't 1-2 by accident. The Chiefs basically had their way with the Ravens, though losing Lamar doesn't help things, though even with Lamar, they were already down big. Fortunately for the Ravens, Lamar isn't out for the season. Unfortunately, a hamstring will seriously affect his effectiveness. Bears vs. Raiders. This game was just silly. It was a sloppy game by both teams. Geno Smith was giving out interceptions like candy. Caleb Williams had butterfingers but somehow didn't lose the ball. But hey, on the bright side, Ashton Jeanty finally did something. And he did a lot of something. Carried the game for the Raiders. And now the game comes down to a field goal. But guess what? It got blocked. Script writers need to try some new material. Packers vs. Cowboys. This matchup was hyped up ever since Micah Parsons got traded to the Packers, and it was quite the show. Packers started off strong, but then the Cowboys decided to have an offense all of a sudden and took the lead before halftime. And then the second half was just fireworks. Neither defense could get a stop to save their lives. And though Micah Parsons didn't have the biggest game, he made a crucial tackle in overtime to save what could have been a walk-in touchdown for Dak. If Dak scores a touchdown there, I'm not sure the Packers would have responded in kind. The greatest tie game I've ever watched. And the first of 2 Monday night games, we have the Jets vs. Dolphins. Well, the Dolphins finally won a game at the cost of Tyreek Hill, but to be honest, it was a surprise that Tyreek Hill was even playing on the Dolphins this year, but sucks that he pretty much destroyed his knee, and we'll see if he's even able to make an NFL career after this. The Jets, on the other hand, made way too many mistakes on offense, like fumbling on the goal line, to win this game. You know, I actually thought they might be able to win this game after how they played last week, but no, they're still the Jets. Bengals vs. Broncos. Well, this was pretty much the expected outcome. Broncos, with that elite defense, should have shut down the Bengals without Joe Burrow. I mean, the Bengals without Joe Burrow look completely lost. Jake Browning is not doing it, and it shows in the receivers. It feels like the Bengals have given up. Bo Nix finally had a good game, which is good to see from him. Hopefully we see more of that this year. And RJ Harvey scored a touchdown. Nice. Now that we took a brief look at all the games this weekend, I want to look at the 5 biggest storylines coming out of week 4. We will start in Ireland, where the Steelers and Vikings played. This was the first NFL game played in Dublin, and it was certainly an interesting one. The Vikings are missing a lot of players on offense, and it's clearly affecting them. Carson Wentz wasn't even on the team until a few weeks ago, so it's tough to run a full offense with him at the helm, and they went against a much tougher defense than the Steelers this week. Though the Vikings did put up a valiant effort at the end, penalties killed their last drive. But there isn't much to talk about in terms of the Vikings since they weren't close to full strength. I want to talk more about the Steelers. Finally, the Steelers defense has been stepping up over these past few games. A total of 7 takeaways in the past 2 games has been critical in helping the Steelers get to 3-1. The Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf connection has been strong this year, and the run game has been solid, though Gainwell filled in nicely for Jalen Warren this game. Games have been far from perfect for the Steelers, but what matters is if you get the win, and the Steelers don't get to 3-1 by accident. And being 3-1 puts them in an interesting spot in the AFC North. The Bengals are 2-2. However, they're missing Joe Burrow for most of the season, and without him, it's hard to envision them going anywhere this year. The Ravens fall to 1-3 after getting blown out by the Chiefs. Their defense has been horrendous so far, but they are missing a lot of players. But a big storyline from that game is Lamar injured his hamstring. It won't hold him out for the season. However, even when he does come back, it's going to limit his effectiveness. And the Ravens are already in a big hole being 1-3. And the Browns are the Browns. They aren't competing for anything. So that leaves the Steelers with the best chance for the division crown, which is not something we thought would happen after 4 weeks. But the Steelers' schedule is not easy. They have yet to play anyone in their division and still have a lot of other tough games. So there's still a lot of season left for the Steelers to prove they deserve the division crown. And since I talked a little bit about the Ravens, why not look at the Chiefs-Ravens game? In a battle of 1 and 2 teams, someone was going home 1 and 3, but I'm sure many of us expected this to be a tough battle between 2 contenders. It was not. The Chiefs dog-walked the Ravens and exposed their defense. I mean, pretty much every offense worth anything has done that to the Ravens this year. Just the Chiefs' offense hasn't been very explosive for the first 3 weeks. It seems getting Xavier Worthy back has helped get this Chiefs offense going again. And the Chiefs defense stepped up and got to Lamar several times while also forcing a few turnovers. The Chiefs showed that they should still be taken seriously even after a shaky start. Meanwhile, the Ravens are in a hole that's going to be tough to climb out of. The Ravens' schedule isn't terrible, so they will have an opportunity to get back into the division race, but how long Lamar is out will affect their chances. But let's talk about the biggest upset this weekend. The Giants over the Chargers. I mean, who expected this to happen? The Chargers have been really good over the first 3 weeks of the season, and Justin Herbert has been fantastic. The Giants, meanwhile, have been sputtering on offense outside of the Cowboys game. Russell Wilson gets deservedly benched after his performance against the Chiefs last week, and the rookie Jackson Dart gets thrust into the starting role. And against the Chargers defense that has been stingy all year, it was going to be a tough test. And to make matters worse for the Giants, they lose their top receiver in Malik Neighbors with an ACL injury thanks to the MetLife turf. But even with that setback, they made it work thanks to some less than stellar play from Herbert, who threw 2 interceptions. In terms of passing, Jackson Dart was hardly impressive, only throwing for 111 yards and a touchdown, but he made the difference with his legs, making plays in critical spots. And he didn't turn the ball over. The rushing attack for New York was effective, gaining 161 yards on the ground, and that was enough to win the game. I figured Dart would start at some point during the season, but I wasn't expecting him to start this early, but he's going to get tested. After the Saints next week, the Giants have a tough middle part of the schedule. If they manage 4 wins between now and week 12, I'd be impressed. There were several other upsets this week. However, I want to talk about one that happened on the West Coast. The Jaguars over the 49ers. The Jaguars took on a beat-up 49ers team, but they got Brock Purdy back for this game. And maybe rushing Purdy back so quickly wasn't the greatest idea because he threw 2 picks and lost the ball on the game-winning sack. It also doesn't help when you lose your top 2 receivers in the game, and missing Nick Bosa on defense showed. The 49ers didn't sack, let alone hit Trevor Lawrence, and ETN gashed them in the running game. But the Jags offense was hardly the story this game. The Jags defense has been on a tear lately. They have forced 3+ turnovers in each of their games this season. They have achieved a franchise record of 13 takeaways in the first 4 games, which also leads the league this year. Turnovers are often finicky, and teams easily go into droughts or get a bunch all at once, but the consistency the Jaguars have been getting them is impressive. If their current pace holds, they would end the season with 55, which would be the most in a season since the Seahawks got 63 in 1984. Tough to say if they can keep it going, but it would be big to continue their current streak with the Chiefs on Monday. Also, Devin Lloyd is having one hell of a season so far. If he can keep this level of play up, he could make the Pro Bowl, if not even an All-Pro. And the last storyline I will talk about is the Micah Parsons revenge game. Packers versus Cowboys. I mean, this was a wild game. Defense was optional in the second half. George Pickens had a breakout game, Romeo Doubs was the wide receiver 1 for the Packers, and Dak was doing everything he could to keep his team in the game after going down 13-2 early. Also, blocked field goals are still a thing this week. This game was really going to be decided who got the ball last, but whoever got the ball last didn't land the decisive blow to win the game. But I do want to point out one play in particular that may have changed the outcome of this game. When the Cowboys got close to the goal line in overtime, Dak had a wide open running lane for a touchdown, but Micah Parsons managed to chase him down to save the touchdown. Now, it's definitely possible the Packers are able to get a touchdown in response, but with how their final drive sort of stalled, it's no guarantee. The Cowboys offense is clearly going to have to carry this team with all the injuries they have on defense. I thought last week was a weird letdown game for the Cowboys offense, and this week shows the offense is legit. But if their defense is going to keep giving up 30 to 40 points every week, they will need their offense to deliver week in and week out in order to win any games. And on the Packers side of things, maybe we were overrating them a little bit. This was a game they should have been able to win, but a crucial turnover before halftime allowed the Cowboys to take the lead and give them a spark. The offense finally looked good, but it's the Cowboys defense. Everyone looks good against them. And the defense needed to make some stops in order to win this game, but they didn't do that even though they were able to against some good offenses early on. I guess a tie is better than a loss though. And that'll do it for this week. Let me know what other storylines interested you this week in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and sub. It would be greatly appreciated. But I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.